So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to the session. Welcome to this wonderful cross night. Today, we'll be looking at the human eye, as we've already said, guys. It's part of the responding to the environment in humans. Remember, guys, so far we've already introduced the whole concept of how humans respond to the environment. We've already talked about the spinal cord, we talked about the central nervous system, and all of that. So here's a recap for you guys so that you can still remind yourself what what the human nervous system does and how it works. So these are the important points that you need to remember, grade 12s. Remember, first of all, that the cerebrum, the part of the brain known as the cerebrum, it is the part that actually interprets every sense. So as I've already told you guys before, that basically the brain, particularly the cerebrum, it is the one that is responsible for interpreting each and every sense. We are talking about sight, you are talking about smell, you are talking about taste, all the five senses. Okay. Whenever you are tasting something, whenever you are seeing something, whenever you are hearing something, I told you guys that you do not hear with your eyes, or you do not hear with your ears, you do not see with your eyes, you do not smell with your nose. But basically, your brain is the one that interprets each and every sense that comes from different sense organs. And I explained to you guys how does the information get to the brain. I told you that the information, it is sent in form of nerve impulses. So it is sent in form of what? Of nerve impulses. It passes through the sensory neuron first, and then if it's a reflex action, it's going to the spinal cord. But if you want to interpret maybe light, or maybe you want to be able to see something, your brain, your cerebrum is the one that will interpret that. Okay, even when you are smelling something, it is your brain that is actually interpreting the smell. Otherwise, your nose is just acting as a sense organ. All right. So these messages or these the signals are actually sent to the brain, and they are known as nerve impulses, as I've already explained to you guys. That basically the nerve impulses are just electrical signals that are sent to the brain, and they will be interpreted by the cerebellum. Okay, so this has been covered on our previous session, indeed, based on the brain and the concept of neurons. Please, guys, revisit that session. Make sure that you understand each and every part of what the cerebrum does. All right. So now let's talk about the human eye, because the human eye is one of the most important sense organs, okay, because it is the one that actually connects us to the world. For you right now, you are seeing the screen, you are able to see people, you are able to wake up and see your girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever, but basically it is your eyes that connect you to the world, basically. So this is the front view of the eye. I think this is very user friendly. You guys can be able to see the front view. You guys already know how the eye looks like because all of us have got eyes, right? So let's just label some of the parts that you find in the front view of an eye. So the first part that you're going to label, we're going to label the pupil, all right? So we've got a pupil. So the pupil, it is just the dark part of the eye. So whenever we're talking about the pupil, we're talking about the dark part of the eye. So this round like shape that is darker. So for some people it is dark, for some people it is a bit brown, for some people it is blue, but it is the dark part. Let's just say it is the colored part. So it is the colored part of the eye. All right. So okay, let's just say, oh no. That is the iris, guys. Sorry. That's the iris, all right. So the iris, it is the colored part of the eye. So the iris, we're talking about this part here, this part that looks round, it is the colored part of the eye. So this actually is the one that determines the color of your eye. It can be a brown color. You can have a black colored eyes. You guys would just look at your eyes and do ask yourself, what color do I have in my eyes? But basically, that is the iris. So the iris, it is the what? It is the colored part of the eye. That's the first thing that we're going to talk about. So the iris is the colored part of the eye. So it is the one that determines the eye color. All right. Then we have got the pupil. All right. The pupil, it is now this region here that is an opening of the eye. So this is the opening of the eye. So it is just like a smaller dot that you see inside your eye. So it's a smaller dot. I don't know if you guys can be able to see it, but if you look at a person very carefully, you look at their eye, you're gonna find a smaller dot there. So that smaller dot, it is the opening into the eye. So basically, it is just open space. It means that it allows some light to be able to enter into the eye. Because basically, guys, for you guys to be able to see something, light must be able to enter into your eye. Otherwise, if you close your eyes, it means that there is no light entering. You cannot be able to see in the dark. Okay. Even if you open your eyes in the dark, when there's no light, you cannot be able to see. Your brain cannot be able to interpret anything if there's no light. All right. So basically, light is the one that is responsible for stimulating vision in the first place. But that light must be able to enter through the pupil of the eye. So the pupil, it is just a smaller hole that you're going to find inside the eye. It allows some light to be able to enter into your eyes. And when that light enters into your eyes, basically it is the one that will allow you to see objects. So it would be the one that stimulates vision in the first place. Okay. Then we've got the sclera. The sclera is the white part of the eye, of course. You guys already know that the eye has got a colored part and it also has got a white part. I've already told you guys that the colored part of the eye, it is the iris, all right? And then the white part of the eye, it is known as the sclera. So all of this region is white colored. All of this is white colored. It is known as the sclera. So the sclera is a white part of the eye. And then the other things that you can talk about, basically the eye has got eyelashes as well. So you guys already know eyelashes. Girls like to buy those artificial eyelashes, but naturally a human has got their own eyelashes, by the way. But basically these eyelashes, they are also found as part of the eye. And we also have got an eyelid. We also have got an eyelid, just some kind of a bony structure that you'll find on top of your eye. Like if you hold your eye right now, just on your near your thing, near your eyelashes, like the eyelashes that are found here on top, near those eyelashes, you're gonna find a bone-like structure. That is an eyelid. It is kind of protecting your eyes. So basically, your eye is protected in 3 ways, right? First of all, the eyeball lies in a bony cavity. As I've already told you guys that if you touch your eye right now, your eye, it is underneath a bone. Guys, touch your eyes right now. You can feel the bone that I'm talking about, right? So that is a bone that protects the eye. So basically the eyeball, or basically the ball of your eye, let me just say your eye itself, it is found inside, or it lies under a bony cavity. So basically it lies under a bony cavity. I should have pasted an image of a skeleton here, but you guys kind of get the sense. When you hold your eyes, you're gonna feel something that looks like that feels like a bone on top of your eyes. So that bone, it is protecting your eyes from mechanical damage, right? And then the eyeball is also surrounded by fat tissue to protect from mechanical injury. So another thing, there is also fat tissue as well that is found in your eye, although not shown in this diagram per se, but basically there is fat tissue, the adipose tissue that protects your eye from mechanical injury. And also there are eyelashes, of course. The eyelashes is the one that I've been telling you about, the one that is put in girls' makeup and stuff like that. So the eyelashes, what do? They stop particles such as dust from entering the eye. So particles such as dust, whenever there is dust, whenever there is whatever smaller particles or soil particles or sand particles, basically your eyelashes will stop them from entering your eye. It prevents those foreign objects from entering into your eye, because your eye must only take in some light, nothing else. So the eye is protected in these 3 ways. There are many more as well, but I'll just give you these 3. Okay. So now let's look at the cross-sectional view of the eye. All right. So the cross-sectional view of the eye, we are now looking at the eye as if like we have cut it into one piece. Like cross-section, guys, simply means that you are cutting something you are cutting something through. So basically it's like I have cut through this eye. I have cut through this eye and I am viewing it from the side. So it is kind of like the side view of the eyeball. So the first thing that you can see here, you can see that this eye, it has got a ball-like structure. This is how your eye looks like from the side view. All right. So this is we call it a cross-sectional view, or you can say it's a longitudinal view of an eye. Yeah. Or you can say it's a cross-sectional view. It's still the same thing for this context. But basically this is your eyeball. So this is your eyeball. Your eye looks like a ball-like structure. You guys can just touch your eyes and you can feel them. They feel like they are balls. So if you were to pluck them out from your from your eye, or if you go to remove your eyes, you will see them. They're actually ball-like structure. So there are three main layers of the eye. Okay, the first layer I've already told you about it. It is the sclera. Remember, guys, I told you guys that the sclera, it is the white part of the eye, right? So basically, the sclera, it is this layer here. This layer that I'm highlighting, it is the white part of the eye. It is the one that shows basically in the front view. You guys I already shown you the front view of an eye, but basically this layer here is known as the sclera. It is the white part of the eye. But now let's now give more descriptions to it. With this white part of the eye, what is it even doing? Why do we have a white part of the eye? Basically, the sclera, it is a tough layer. When you say that a sclera is tough, it simply means that it is tough, like literally tough. It is not easy to just let's just say it is tough, guys. You guys get the sense of tough. But basically, it is not easy to stretch, right? So it is tough and it is inelastic. When you say that the sclera is inelastic, it cannot stretch easily. All right. So it is a white layer. It is the one that causes your eyes to look white, and it protects the inner structures. So it is the one that protects the what? The inner structures of the eye, and it also maintains the shape of the eyeball. So we have got two functions of the sclera. You guys must note them down one by one. The sclera, it is a white layer. It is white in color. It is the one that gives us the white part. So basically, this is the sclera. In the front view, guys, you can see the sclera. This whole white region, it is the what? It is the sclera. It's just that here we are viewing it from the side. That's why it kind of looks like it has been cut through, because it's a cross-sectional view. So basically, this is the what? The white layer. And what does it do? It protects the inner structures of the eye, because inside the eye, we have got other complicated structures and they are fragile, so they need protection. That is why the sclera, it is tough. That's the first thing you need to say. Whenever you're answering questions, grade 12, when they ask you, how is the sclera adapted to do its function? You are going to say that the sclera, it is tough or it is inelastic. It simply means that it is tough. It is not easy to break through, right? It is not easy to stretch. So it is enough to be able to protect the inner structures of the eye. So whenever you are writing, this is usually 2 marks. Whenever you're answering such questions, it is tough, or you can say that it is inelastic. And then what does it do? It protects the inner structures of the eye. And also the other function, this sclera also maintains the shape of the eye. Basically, for your eye to look like this round, it is because of this sclera, because the sclera, it kind of looks like a round shape. So this layer, since it's a round shape, it maintains the shape of the eye to always be round. So the sclera, it is just tough white layer that protects the inner structures of the eye and also maintains the shape of the eye. All right. We say that we've got 3 layers of the eye, guys, 3 main layers. I've already talked about the outer layer, the one that is found in the outside. It is the one that we're able to see even when we're looking at you. We're able to see it. No, man, this is the white part of the eye. That is the sclera. So underneath the sclera, grade 12s, we've got another layer known as the choroid. So the choroid is the second layer underneath the what? Underneath the sclera. So I'm just going to try and highlight the choroid with light blue. So this layer here, it is known as the choroid. Try my best to highlight. I don't know if people can see here, but basically this second layer is known as the choroid. It is also round because it is just found underneath the sclera, guys, just below the sclera. So this layer here, although I didn't highlight perfectly, but you guys kind of get the sense. So underneath the sclera, I'm sure we say that the sclera is the outermost. It is the outer layer. It is the one that we can see. It is the white part of the eye. We can see it, right? That is the sclera for you. But now the choroid is another layer that follows it. So if you remove the sclera, the next layer of the eye will be known as a choroid. So the choroid, what does it do, your eye? The choroid, it has got many blood vessels. All right. So it has got many blood vessels. When you say that the choroid has got many blood vessels, it simply means that there are a lot of arteries and there are a lot of veins. Remember, guys, the blood vessels are arteries, veins, and capillaries. Those are just small linear tubes that are responsible for transporting blood to different parts of your body. So basically, your eye, to be able to function, it needs some oxygens and it needs some nutrients, because your eye cannot just function without oxygen. All right, so you need to have some oxygen on your eye. Your eye also needs nutrients, essential nutrients for its function. So basically, the choroid is enriched with many blood vessels. That's the first thing that you explain. Guys, whenever you want to explain the function of something, please tell us first of all, how is it equipped to do that function? In this case, how is the choroid able to be able to supply oxygen to the eye? The choroid has got many blood vessels. And we already know, guys, that blood actually carries nutrients and oxygen. You guys know that from grade 11, also blood carries oxygen and nutrients. So whenever you are breathing in some air with oxygen, that oxygen, it is carried to different parts of the body through the blood, specifically through the hemoglobin in the blood. Blood is also able to supply nutrients such as glucose. All of those, they are nutrients that are dissolved into the blood. So basically, those nutrients, they are needed by the eye, grade 12s, for the eye to be able to function efficiently, effectively. That is why the choroid is equipped with many blood vessels. And those many blood vessels, what is their function? It is to supply nutrients, and as well as what? As well as oxygen. Those two, supply nutrients and oxygen to the eye. And furthermore, the choroid contains pigments, okay? So basically, the choroid, let me just add here because it's not written, but basically we say that the choroid, it contains pigments. So the choroid contains pigments. And what are those pigments for? Those pigments are to prevent internal reflection of light. Okay, they prevent the internal reflection of light. So basically, when the light enters into your eye, okay, if it is scattered, let's just say light goes to different parts of your eye. Light goes to different parts of your eye. Okay, if we did not have a choroid, the light can be reflected. Okay, the light can be reflected. You will find light bouncing back in different directions. And if the light will just be bouncing back in different direction in your eye, you will not be able to see. We are still going to look at how a person ends up seeing something. But basically, if the light keeps on reflecting within your eyes, you won't be able to see what's outside. You'll end up seeing what's inside your eye. It's kind of crazy and it's kind of too much to handle. So the choroid has got pigments that actually prevent the reflection of light. They prevent the internal reflection of light. They actually cause the light to only go in one direction. Okay, so whenever light enters your eyes, it must only move in one direction to be able to create some vision for you guys to be able to see. But it must not just reflect without any specific order. So the choroid is there to also help because it prevents the internal reflection of light. It contains pigments. First of all, you say that the choroid contains pigments to be able to prevent the reflection of light. So the pigments, they kind of absorb the light and they cause the light to not reflect inside your eyes. So see, whenever light enters into your eyes, it will not reflect in multiple directions. It will rather just stay in one place. Okay, it will just move in one direction. So that's the function of the choroid. So we've got two functions and all of them, they are important. So far, grade 12s, are we still on the same page?
Sir, can you please repeat the part of choroid?
Okay, the first part, guys, I said that the choroid it has got many blood vessels, and those blood vessels, they supply nutrients and oxygen to the eye, because basically your eye requires nutrients and oxygen to function. And also the choroid, it contains pigments that prevents internal reflection of light. So basically, you guys will understand this further when we're going to talk about how a person sees. How does vision work? But basically, when light enters your eyes, if we don't have a choroid, the light will just be scattered in different directions and it will just be reflecting and moving in different directions. And you cannot be able to see if the light is just scattering in different directions in your eyes. You cannot be able to see. You won't be able to see. But because there is a choroid, the choroid, it causes the light to move in one direction. But when you answer it, you say that it prevents an internal reflection of light. So that just say that it has got pigments to prevent the internal reflection of light, because light is not supposed to reflect within your eye. It is not supposed to reflect at all. But you're going to understand that further when you're going to talk about how does a person see something. Are we clear there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's now look at the third layer, guys. I've already told you we've got three main layers covering the eye. The third layer of the eye, it is the retina, or you can say the retina. So the retina, it is this part here that I'm highlighting with green. I don't know if it's so visible, but this inner layer. So the innermost layer of the eye is known as the retina. This is the retina. So we've got the sclera, the choroid, and the retina. Those are the three main layers of the eye. So now we'll discuss the functions of the retina as we go through the vision and how it is interpreted. But you guys should just know that there are three layers that are found or that are making up the eye. So let's talk about how does the human eye function, so that you'll be able to learn the other parts, because now you already know the sclera, you already know the choroid, you already know the retina, all right? You already know that we're having three main layers. But now I want to introduce to you guys the other parts of the eye. But for me to introduce those parts, I want you guys to first understand how does the eye functions. In fact, how do you end up seeing something? Because whenever you are having vision, whenever you are looking at something and you are seeing it, what actually causes that to happen? Or what is the function of the eye, the basic idea? So the first thing that I told you guys, we must have some light. So in this case, our stimulus is what? Is light. So we've got light stimulus. So basically light must be able to enter your eye. That's the first thing. Because if light does not enter your eye, you can never be able to see. Vision can only be stimulated by light, grade 12s. So whenever there is light, then there is vision. Whenever there is light, whenever light can be able to enter your eye, then you will be able to see something happening. Otherwise, if you close your eyes, light will not enter and you won't be able to see. Or if you are in a dark room where there is no light, light is not entering, you are not able to see. So the first thing that must happen, the light stimulus must enter the eye. So light is our stimulus because light is the factor that stimulates vision. Light is the one that causes you to see. So light stimulus must enter the eye. That's the first thing that must happen. Then this light stimulus, when it enters the eye, remember what must happen? It must be converted into a what? Into a nerve impulse. Because basically, remember guys, I told you that the brain understands impulses. Whatever information from different sense organs, it is transmitted in form of nerve impulses. Nerve impulses, remember guys, they're just electrical signals that are sent to the cerebrum of the brain, and then the brain will interpret them. So in this case, whenever the light stimulus enters into your eye, it will now be converted into a nerve impulse. And then this nerve impulse will be sent to the cerebrum for interpretation. So the third step, the nerve impulse will be sent to the cerebrum for interpretation. Once grade 12s, you understand this. I'm talking about understanding, not framing this, because you probably not answer anything in this form. This is for you guys to understand how does a person end up seeing something. I told you light must enter their eyes. And then this light stimulus must be converted into a nerve impulse. And then the nerve impulse must now be sent to the cerebrum so that the cerebrum will interpret it as vision. it will interpret it as something that you can see. But basically, it is just light that is entering into your eye. Light from different objects that is entering into your eye. Okay, so now we're going to look at how does that work. So let's introduce the first layer when it comes to light entering into your eyes. So we have got the cornea. So the cornea is a transparent part that allows light to pass through. Remember, guys, I told you that the outer layer is known as the sclera, right? So the sclera here at its front, it is kind of bent. So it is kind of curved. So if you look at the sclera here, it has got a curvature, or it is kind of rounded here. So since your sclera is rounded here at the front, it forms a part known as the cornea. So the cornea is just a curved part of the sclera, but we don't really call it the sclera anymore. We call it the cornea. It just looks like a curved part. You guys can see that it is just the sclera, but it is a curved part of the sclera. This is known as the cornea of the eye. That's the cornea of the eye. So now, what is the cornea of the eye doing in this whole thing? So the cornea of the eye is a transparent part, number one thing. So remember, something when it is transparent, it does not really have okay, you can be, it's a see-through. You can be able to see something on the other side. You guys, I'm sure you understand the term transparent, right? For example, if there is glass between us, and then one person is on the other side, another person is on the other side. Basically, if the glass is transparent, I'm able to see the person on the other side. So basically, the cornea is transparent. So I'm sure you guys cannot be able to see the cornea from your eyes because it kind of looks like a glass. You cannot be able to see it because it's transparent, right? But it is just a part that exists here. So the cornea is a transparent part of the eye, and it allows light to pass through. That's the first part that allows light to pass through. So guys, mind the way I've constructed the words here. Mind the wording here. So basically, the cornea allows light to pass through into the eye, right? But basically, what causes the cornea to be able to allow light to pass through? It is because the cornea is transparent, guys. When something is transparent, it simply means that it can allow some light to pass through it. The same way I told you guys, with a glass can allow me to see you on the other side. So the cornea is a transparent part that allows light to pass through. It allows light to enter into your eye. All right, that's the cornea. When you explain such questions, whenever you want to explain the adaptations of the cornea, you're simply explaining what the cornea, it allows light to pass through. But what causes it to allow light to pass through? It is because it is transparent. Okay, it is transparent. So that's the first thing. So it means that whenever light is coming from different objects, whenever light, let's just say this is light that is coming, these arrows are representing light that is coming from different objects. This light, it will enter through the cornea. Okay, so basically the cornea has got a convex shape. Basically, when you say that the cornea has got a convex shape, it simply means that it is rounded. In life sciences terms, whenever we use the term convex, convex means the same thing as rounded. Okay, convex means the same thing as rounded. So whenever I am talking about something that is rounded, it simply means that thing is convex. So whenever you hear the term convex, it means rounded. So if you look carefully, guys, here on our cornea, as I've already told you, that the cornea is curved. It's just the curved part of the sclera. So basically, you can see that here, your cornea looks like a curve. This highlighted region, it is curved. So we use the term convex to describe it. So since it is curved, we say that it refracts light rays. It refracts light rays. Okay, let's talk about this refraction that we are talking about. What is refraction in this context, all right? So basically, when light enters here and it reaches the cornea, it will have to bend so that it can be able to enter the eye. it would have to bend so that it can be able to enter the eye, because we have got light. There is a lot of light here. There's a lot of light that is trying to enter into the eye. But when it gets here at the cornea, for it to be able to enter the eye, it must bend. So we usually use the term refract to talk about that. So basically, how does it bend? It kind of bends and it enters into the eye. It bends and it enters into the eye. So I will zoom in a bit so that you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. Okay, so please watch carefully my arrows here. I tried my best to make them visible, but basically you guys can see that here we are having light, right? So here this is light that is entering into your eye. This is light that is entering into your eye. So we are having light that is entering into your eye, and then as light enters into your eye in this manner, let me just use another color. So as light enters into your eyes, the moment it reaches the cornea, it is refracted or it is bended. That is why you see my arrows are kind of bending, okay? So that the eye can be able to enter the eye, guys. The light can be able to enter the eye. Basically, when the light rays, they are coming towards your eyes. When the light rays, they are coming towards the eyes, they bend so that they can be able to enter the eye. Why are they bending? It's because this cornea, it is curved. Okay, so it kind of bends the light rays. We use the term refract. So whenever you hear the term refract, it simply means that the light is being bent. It is bending. The light is bending. So basically, when light enters, let me just show you one arrow. For example, this is an arrow of light that is coming towards the eye. So this is the light ray that is coming towards the eye. When the light ray reaches here at the eye, it will have to bend so that it can be able to enter the eye. If another light ray comes, let's just say this is another light ray, it comes, it would have to bend so that it can be able to do what? To enter the eye. Another one comes, it would have to bend so that it does what? It enters the eye. So that process is known as refraction. Don't use the term bending. Bending is just for us to have kind of a bit of an understanding, normal for us to kind of have an idea of what is happening. But basically, the cornea has got a shape that is convex, so it refracts the light rays. So it is convex shape that allows it to refract the light rays. Because imagine, guys, imagine you had something like this. Let's just say you had a flat surface, you had a glass like this. This is just a glass, right? And then you also have got a rounded glass like this. You have got a rounded glass. So this is a rounded glass, okay? So let's just say you take a torch. You take a torch here. Take a torch here. And then I don't know where I'll put the handle. But basically you take a torch. You take a torch that is shining light on this mirror, okay? So basically this light, let's just say it's just a glass, right? So this light will just go straight through the mirror and then it will go to the other side of the mirror, right? But if your mirror is kind of bended like this, we say that it is convex. If your mirror is convex, meaning that I bring a torch here. When I bring my torch, when the light reaches here, it will bend first. It will bend so that it will enter the eye. So the light will bend so that it will be able to enter the eye. That's just the idea of refraction, okay? So if you guys are interested more in how light works and stuff like that, it is recommended that you study optics. If there is a course known as optics, or you can just study physics. Of course, if you guys are doing science, you can just study physics. You can study the nature of light. How does the bending work? What is actually causing the light to bend? But for now, since you're in grade 12, I just want you guys to get the idea that whenever the light here reaches this convex shaped cornea, it will bend. But the term that we use is refract. So the convex shape of the cornea causes the light rays to refract. That's the term that we use. So the cornea is the curved part of the eye. It is the curved part of the sclera. Basically, it is a transparent part, meaning that it allows light to pass through. But when the light passes through, it bends, or we say that it refracts. We use the term refracts, right? So inside the cornea, there is a fluid that is filling the space, the space known as the aqueous humor. So basically, here, when you get to the cornea here, let's just erase these arrows a bit. So here inside the cornea, we have got another part as well. So this is my cornea. We've got another significant part of fluid that's found inside the cornea. So just inside the cornea, there is a fluid that is filling in this entire space. So this entire space here, it is filled with a fluid, this entire space here. Just after the cornea, let's just look at it carefully, Kretox. This part here that I'm shading with blue, it is a fluid, it is a liquid, right? Or it's a fluid known as the aqueous humor. The aqueous humor. So the aqueous humor, it is a fluid that is filling this entire space. So this space, it is full of liquid. So if you were to go, I don't know if you guys often do this whenever you have got chicken. Whenever I've got chicken, if you take the eye of a chicken and you poke it with your finger, there's gonna be a liquid that will come out. That is the aqueous humor that I'm talking about. So the aqueous humor, it is just a liquid that is filling this entire space that is found just after the cornea, or you can say just behind the cornea. So basically, the aqueous humor, it is the fluid, and this main function is to maintain the shape of the cornea, because there's a fluid filling this entire space, the cornea will stay rounded. It will remain with this round shape. It's like it's a balloon. So this fluid, it is filling the space. There's this balloon known as the cornea. Kind of get the sense to see this fluid, it is causing the cornea to maintain its shape.
Hey Lapo, I know that you've been enjoying this wonderful video, and most likely you've been enjoying watching this handsome face in front of you, but sorry ladies, I'm taken. I just here to tell you that Educate is on the road to 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. So please click the subscribe button and click the notification bell so that you get notifications whenever I post new videos. I want you guys to pass. Okay, so if you make my dream true, I reach 100k subscribers, I will make your dreams come true. I will even get you to varsity. I will get you with 7 distinctions. Yes.
So I was still explaining to you guys behind the cornea, or after the cornea, just behind the cornea, we have got a region that is filled with some fluid or with a liquid known as the aqueous humor. And I've already highlighted it for you guys. This bluish part highlighted, it is filled with some liquid. All right. So basically, it's a liquid, like liquid. Yeah. So this fluid here is known as the aqueous humor, and it is the one that helps the cornea to maintain its shape. It's kind of like the cornea is a balloon, guys. And when there is this fluid, this blue fluid here, then the cornea will keep on becoming rounded. It will keep on having this round shape. But if there is no water, let's just say there is no aqueous humor, then the cornea will not be this rounded. Basically, for this cornea to be rounded like this, I'm trying to say, Uti, this aqueous humor is the one that causing the cornea to keep on having this round shape, because it is filling in this entire region with some aqueous humor. So the aqueous humor, it actually helps to maintain the shape of the cornea. Okay, so it is a fluid that maintains the shape of the cornea, and furthermore, it slightly refracts light rays. So basically, the aqueous humor, it also has got a smaller function of refracting the light rays. So it is also able to bend the light rays, but it's not that much significant. Okay, the cornea is the one that does the bending of light rays. As I've already explained to you guys, the cornea is convex shaped. It refracts light rays. Even the aqueous humor, it also refracts light rays, but it doesn't do it that much. Okay, so it just slightly refracts light rays. It slightly bends the light rays. So that is it. Now your light has entered into the eye, because we've already said, the light is supposed to enter through the cornea. When it gets to the cornea, remember we said that it's going to bend, or it's going to refract. it's going to bend or it's going to refract. So now when this light refracts, what will happen to it next? What will happen to the light A? Okay, so now Leona is asking, so say, meaning that tears are formed from the aqueous humor. Interesting. Tears, are they really the aqueous humor? I don't think so. But it might be. I'll try to remember. But tears, a mechanism of you ending up crying does not really come from the aqueous humor. But I'll try remembering, okay? But basically, you guys should know indeed that the thing, the cornea is filled with aqueous humor beneath it. But I will try to remember and recall. Yes, Sam.
So, sir, about tears, sir, don't you think, sir, there is another maybe gland or organ aside from AI that produces tears? Yeah.
Yes, there must be a gland. That's why you say, Leona, they don't necessarily, the tears don't come from the aqueous humor. Remember, guys, the aqueous humor, it is kind of, it's a fluid, but it is behind the cornea. So basically, it is behind this part of the eye. So it cannot really like spill out and you end up finding it tearing you. Not really. Okay. The tears, they actually come from glands, as Sam says. Don't know what glands are those, lacrimal glands or something, but something close to that, I'm sure. But basically, there are glands that actually secrete tears. They produce tears. Okay, aqueous humor doesn't. It is actually found behind the cornea, so it's kind of protected. Cannot really just spill out and end up spilling out like tears. Yes, Leon.
So, my question is, does teary gland exist? Teary gland, the gland that forms tears.
Well, yes, it exists, but I'm not sure of the name. The last time I checked, I think it was somewhere around lacrimal gland. There is a gland though that exists that produces tears. There is a gland that produces tears. I think it's a lacrimal gland, and possibly found, I don't know, on top of the eye or something. But the function is to produce tears. And tears are also another way of protecting your eyes as well. That's one of the things that I could have added as well. Tears are also ways of protecting your eyes. But basically, they are glands known as lacrimal glands to be able to produce tears. The tears that protect your eyes. Whenever foreign objects try to enter your eyes. Does that kind of make sense, Leon?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. I will just try to check your curriculum, guys, if you need to know all of that. But basically, you guys should never stop being curious, right? I like such questions. Keep them coming, right? So now, your eyes, the light, it will enter here now. And then the light will enter here. Now the light will reach this part known as the lens. So it will reach this round part known as the lens, okay? So basically, the lens, you guys can see it here. Let me just highlight it further. But basically, the lens is this one part here that looks like it's rounded. This rounded part. This is known as the lens. The lens. This is the lens of the eye. So the lens of the eye, it is an elastic organ, okay? It is an elastic organ. When something is elastic, it means that it is able to stretch. Guys, the term elastic simply means that it is flexible or it is able to stretch. So I'm going to just write here and say able to stretch. So the lens is elastic. That's the first thing. That's the first characteristic of the lens. It is elastic. Elastic means simply means that it's able to stretch, all right? And then the lens is what? the lens is also transparent. That's the next property. The lens is what? Is transparent. That's another thing to think of. The lens is transparent. Guys, the term transparent, I've already explained it when I explained the cornea, right? The lens is also biconvex. Hey, there are many things. The lens is also biconvex. It's also a biconvex structure, and it is held by suspensory ligaments. All right. So the lens has got three properties that you need to take note of and be very careful about. It is elastic. It means that it is able to stretch. It is transparent. It means that it allows light to pass through the eye. It is biconvex. We're gonna see what does the biconvex do. But basically, the lens, when we look at its positioning, it is held in position by suspensory ligaments. So basically, we have got these things that look like strings that are coming from the choroid. So these that looks like they are strings that are coming from the choroid. These are known as the suspensory ligaments. So the suspensory ligaments, they're actually attached to the what? They are attached to the choroid. They are the ones that are actually holding the lens in position, because the lens, you can see that it's a round structure here. It is this round structure that I'm talking about. This is the lens, this round structure here. That's your lens. So now your lens, it is held in position by the suspensory ligaments. So whenever you ask the function of the suspensory ligaments, it is to hold the lens in position, or it is the ones that hold the lens so that it remains in one position, kind of the same thing. Yeah. So basically the suspensory ligaments, their function is to hold the lens in position. Okay. So now that we know the physical structure of the lens and what's holding it, we now need to know the functions. Number one, the lens allows light to enter. Guys, remember, I've already told you that the lens is transparent. Since it's transparent, it means that it allows light to enter. That's pretty obvious. The same thing that I've said on the cornea. Right? Because I told you guys in the cornea, the cornea is transparent, so it allows light to pass through. Similarly, the lens is also a transparent structure as well. So it allows light to enter. So light can be able to enter here through the lens. So light can be able to enter through the lens because the lens is transparent, of course. So whenever you want to back up your answer, you say that the lens is transparent, allowing light to enter. That's how you answer the questions. The lens is transparent, allowing light to enter. And also, guys, I told you that the lens is elastic. The term elastic, I already explained to you that when something is elastic, it simply means that it is able to stretch. So in this context, the lens is able to stretch. It means that it is not actually fixed to be the same position. Sometimes you'll find that your lens is like this, and then at other times you'll find that your lens is like this. Sometimes you'll find out that your lens is like this. These are all different shapes of the lens. Basically, the lens can stretch, the lens can compress, the lens can just change its shape, right? So we say that the lens is elastic. So when the lens is elastic, how does that even help us? Why do we need to even know that in the first place? Because it changes shape. Being elastic simply means that it changes shape. It's able to stretch. So it changes the shape so that it can be able to focus on near or distant objects, right? This is known as accommodation, basically. Let me just write this term accommodation. We are still going to do it when we get to the higher stage later on in the cross night. But for now, I'm just going to define it for you guys so that you kind of get a sense of what is this accommodation thing that I'm talking about, okay? So whenever we say that the eye accommodates, or we say that there is accommodation in the eye, it simply means that here the lens changes shape, okay? The lens changes shape. To focus on near or distant objects. This is known as accommodation. So accommodation is just one such process whereby the lens is changing its shape, because the lens is flexible, it is elastic, right? So it is the process whereby the lens changes its shape so that it can be able to focus on what? Focus on near objects as well as distant objects. So basically, guys, for you guys to be able to see objects that are far away, and for you guys to be able to see objects that are closer to you, basically it is because of the lens. The lens changes its shape. Okay, some people, they cannot be able to see objects that are far away, but they can see objects that are closer, especially when you are now older. When you're now older, your lens refuses to change its shape. So it means that you can only see things that are closer and you cannot see things that are far away. But because you are still young and you are still healthy, basically, accommodation is just basically when the lens is changing its shape so that you can be able to look at objects that are far away and also look at objects that are closer to you. We are still going to do this process in brief details, Gretos, but the idea is here, okay? The idea is here. The lens changes its shape. Why does the lens change its shape? Is because it needs to be able to focus on near or distant objects. But basically, the idea is here. The lens is able to change its shape because it is elastic. That's the first thing that you should mention. The lens is elastic. Therefore, it is able to do what? It is able to change its shape so that it can focus on objects that are closer and objects that are far away. So you find out that your lens is looking like this shape. Sometimes you find out that your lens is looking like this shape. You find out sometimes it looks like this shape. So the lens changes its shape so that you can be able to see things that are far away and the things that are closer to you. Okay. And furthermore, another function that I want to add here, which I didn't write, since you say that the lens is biconvex. Biconvex simply means that it is double convex. So it has got one part that is convex and another part that is convex. But don't worry about the geometry for now. Biconvex. So since the lens is biconvex, it means that it is able to also refract light rays. So it can also refract light rays, just like the cornea is able to bend light rays. So basically, the lens is able to also bend the light rays. It bends the light rays. Okay, although I didn't draw it perfectly, but something like that. It bends the light rays or it refracts the light rays. Okay, so those are the three functions. But whenever you write an answer, please support your answer or back up your answer. The lens allows light to enter. That's not a complete answer. You say that the lens is transparent, allowing light to enter. Because you're explaining what's happening and what causing that to happen. In this case, the lens is able to allow light to enter. Why? Is because that it is transparent. Okay. The lens is changing its shape to be able to focus on near or distant objects. Why is it able to do that? It's because the lens is elastic. It's able to stretch and change its shape. The lens is able to refract light rays. Why is that? It's because it is biconvex. It's able to bend the light rays, just as the cornea was doing for it was. So basically, the lens has got three main functions. This is how you back them up. Are we together, Kratos?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, exactly, guys. That's your lens for you. Then the last thing that we have, okay, not last, we have got the vitreous humor. So whenever you hear the term humor, HUMOUR, it simply means that it's a fluid, that particular thing, right? So it is the fluid, that particular thing. So it means that this entire space in this eye, it is known as the vitreous humor. So the vitreous humor, it's just a fluid or it's a liquid that is filling in the entire eye. So it's a jelly substance, or you can say it's a fluid, or you can say something like that. But it's a jelly substance, and its main aim, it is to maintain the shape of the eyeball. Because basically, if we have got a lot of fluid that is filling in this ball-like structure known as the eye, then the eye will have these round structures because there's a fluid inside it. It's like you are having water inside a balloon. If you keep on increasing the amount of water inside the balloon will become more round. Similarly, if there is a lot of vitreous humor in your eye will have a round shape. But basically, most of us have got an eye with a round shape. What's causing the eye to have this round shape? It is the vitreous humor. The vitreous humor, it is a jelly substance. It is also made up of, 90% of water or something, but basically it's a jelly substance. It maintains the shape of the eyeball. And it also slightly refracts light rays, just like the aqueous humor. But the aqueous humor and the vitreous humor, they don't really bend the light rays that much. That's why I say it's slightly. So don't really consider it a function. But the main function for the vitreous humor, it is to do what? It is to maintain the shape of the eye. It is to make sure that the eyeball looks around. It's because there's vitreous humor in it. So I'm sure you guys now know how does the light enter into the eye. Do you guys understand how light enters into the eye? From the cornea to the aqueous humor to the thingy, to the lens, and then to the vitreous humor. Did you guys see how light enters the eye? Do you guys understand that? Then the first part of the functioning of the eye. I'm sure I told you that the first part of the functioning of the eye, it is for light stimulus to enter the eye. We are done with that. So number one is complete because light has been able to enter the eye. But now we ask ourselves, what will happen to this light when it enters the eye? Where will it go and stuff like that? Yes, that person who's raising their hand, Packard Bell Targa F10 Pro.
I wanted to ask if in a multiple choice question, if I were asked which part of the eye that reflects light rays, which part am I going to say? Is it cornea or lens?
All of them, they reflect light rays. Whenever they give you multiple choice questions, they will make sure that they at least put one. If it's both, they will put an option for a both. But both of them, they are responsible for reflecting light rays, both the cornea and the lens as well. They all do that function. Yeah, they all do that function. Okay, so with that in mind, great folks, it means that we are done with the light entering the eye. Now, the second point, I told you that the light stimulus must be converted into a nerve impulse. Let's talk about that. How is light converted into a nerve impulse? That is where I tell you, or that's where I teach you about the retina. Remember, guys, I told you when we began the session that we have got the sclera, the choroid, and the retina. Those are the three layers. Those are the three main layers that are found around the eye. We have the sclera, the choroid, and the retina. The retina, I've already said that it is the innermost layer of the eye. It is this layer here, is the innermost layer. It is the one that is found inside the eye the most. So this is the innermost layer. This is the retina. So now the retina will be the one that will be responsible for this nerve impulse thing, right? So we are here at point number 2. So the retina is an inner layer of the eye which contains rods and cones. These are known as photoreceptors. So basically the retina has got these receptors known as photoreceptors. So guys, remember last time when I introduced this topic of of a responding to the environment in humans. I told you guys about the receptors. What is the function of receptors? Whenever you hear the term receptor, what is the function of a receptor? According to what we discussed last time about responding to the environment in humans, what is a receptor? Whenever you hear the term receptor, what does it mean? Yes, tell me.
So receptor is a place where that receives the stimuli.
Okay, a bit incomplete. Guys, a receptor receives stimulus, and what does it do with the stimulus? Yes, Packard Bell?
Convert it into an impulse.
Yes, that's the most important thing, guys. The receptors, they receive the stimulus and they convert it into a nerve impulse. That's the most important thing. Which the stimulus will now be converted into a nerve impulse. So basically the retina, this layer that I've highlighted for you guys, some part of it has got these receptors known as photoreceptors. So the photoreceptors are the receptors of light. So photoreceptors, what is their whole function? It is to convert light stimulus. So they convert the stimulus of light into what? Into an impulse. That's the function of photoreceptors. So these are found on the retina. They are the ones that will convert the stimulus into an impulse that can be sent to the cerebellum for interpretation. Okay, so basically we have got two types of these photoreceptors. We have got rods and cones. So there are two types of these receptors found in the same eye, rods and cones. So all of them, they are still photoreceptors, guys. All of them, they are still converting stimulus, light stimulus into an impulse. Yes, I agree. But they have got two types. We've got rods as well as cones. So the rods are responsible for night vision. So whenever you are looking at something at night, the rods are the ones that are converting the light into a nerve impulse. Basically, the rods, they respond to low light. It means that whenever it is dark in the area, whenever like there's not too much light, the rods are the ones that they respond. They are the ones that convert the light into an impulse. So the rods are responsible for night vision, whereas the cones, they are responsible for bright light, or they respond to bright light to provide colored vision. This is for when there's light, when there's proper light. Let's say during the day, whenever you are seeing things, the cones are the ones that are converting the light stimulus into a nerve impulse. Okay, but when you are seeing something at night, the rods are the ones that are doing the job. So rods and cones, both of them, they are photoreceptors. Their function is one. It is to convert light stimulus into an impulse, but they are different from one another. The rods work at night, the cones work during the day. But both, their main function, it is to convert the light stimulus into a nerve impulse. Do you guys understand what's happening?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we have got two spots to take note of here, Gretos. So we have got a yellow spot. We also have got a blind spot. All right. These are two different regions, but they are still found on their retina. All right. So the yellow spot, let me just write it down and say the yellow spot has got a high concentration of photoreceptors. So the yellow spot has a high concentration of photoreceptors. So at the yellow spot, we have got a lot of rods and cones. We've got a lot of photoreceptors to be able to take the light stimulus and convert it into a nerve impulse. That's the yellow spot. There's a high concentration of photoreceptors such as rods and cones. Okay, but we also have got a blind spot. So this area here is known as the blind spot. So that's your blind spot. So there are two spots on the retina, the yellow spot and the blind spot. What differentiates them is the concentration of photoreceptors. How many photoreceptors are found in that area? So the blind spots, there are no photoreceptors, or you can say that there's a low concentration of photoreceptors on the blind spots. Okay, no photoreceptors are found. So it means that basically light is not being converted into an impulse there, because there is nothing to convert it. Remember, guys, that the receptors, their main function is to convert light stimulus in this context into a nerve impulse. So if there are no photoreceptors at the blind spot, how will it be able to convert them? Nothing will happen. So basically, the blind spot, that's why we call it the blind spot. If light comes and falls on the blind spot, let's just say light is coming from the outside and it falls here at the blind spot, you won't be able to see that object, because basically the blind spot does not have the what? It does not have the photoreceptors, the rods and cones to be able to take the what? To be able to take the stimulus and convert it into a nerve impulse. So we have a yellow spot, we've got a blind spot. So the yellow spot here is this one here. Don't know if you guys can see it. This is the yellow spot on the retina. Okay, so the yellow spot on the retina, it is the one having more photoreceptors. But now the blind spot, it does not have photoreceptors. That's why you call it a blind spot, because you will be blind. So we can say that, okay, let's see, guys. Do you have any questions on this? Yes, Sam?
So, sir, on blind spot, I can also say there is no vision right there, ne?
Yes, there is no vision. There is no vision. When light comes to the blind spot, you won't be able to see that light in the first place. So basically, there is no vision at the blind spot. Are we together, Grade 12s?
Okay, sir.
Okay. All right. So we said that the light has entered the eye. Now we have converted into a nerve impulse. I'm sure you guys can now explain, Uzi, how has the light been converted into a nerve impulse here? It's very easy. We've already said it, Uzi. There are rods and cones that take the light and convert it into an impulse. So we are done with point number 2. Then the last point is very simple. Those nerve impulses that have been created or that have been made by these rods and cones, where will they go? They must go to the cerebrum for interpretation. So now, when the nerve impulses go to the cerebrum for interpretation, we introduce another part known as the optic nerve. Remember, guys, I told you that the nerves are just tissues that are made up of nerve cells known as neurons. So basically, whenever you see the term nerve, just know that it is just a bunch of neurons that are connected to one another. So here, the optic nerve, it is found in the eye. The optic nerve, it is the one that will complete the work. Remember, guys, that the light has been converted here at the yellow spot. So the light has been converted here at the yellow spot from being a stimulus into a nerve impulse. Now, those nerve impulses, they will be transmitted via the optic nerve of the eye. So this is your optic nerve. This is the optic nerve. So the optic nerve's function is to transmit nerve impulses, right? So basically this tube that you can see here, known as the optic nerves, it transmits nerve impulses from the retina to the cerebrum for interpretation. That's the most important thing, grade 12. This is all happening so that the brain, so that the cerebrum can interpret the information. That's why when we began the session, grade 12, I told you when we began the session, Wuti, you must remember that the brain is the one that is interpreting all signals from the body. All messages, all nerve impulses, they're going to be interpreted by the cerebrum of the brain. So now when the impulses here are being generated at the eye, they will be transmitted to the cerebrum for interpretation, but that will happen through the optic nerve, because the optic nerve, it is the one that is at the eye. We know already the function of the nerve, basically, it is to do what? It is to transmit impulses using those neuron cells. So basically the neurons are the ones that are actually doing the work, but all together we call it optic nerve when combined. Okay, so basically the optic nerve has got a high concentration of sensory neurons, because basically, remember guys, I told you guys that whenever a stimulus has been converted into a nerve impulse, grade 12s, it will immediately go to the sensory neuron. That's the first thing that we did when we did the reflex action in the reflex arc. Basically, the moment the receptor changes the light stimulus into a nerve impulse, that nerve impulse, it will immediately go to the sensory neuron. That's the first neuron to receive the impulses. Then now the impulses can now be transmitted to the spinal cord, or they will go to the brain, but they will go to the central nervous system at the end of the day. So basically here, the optic nerve has got a lot of sensory neurons. It has got a high concentration of sensory neurons, because those neurons are the ones that are responsible, okay, for transmitting the nerve impulses from the eye, from the retina of the eye, all the way to the cerebrum of the brain, so that the brain can make an interpretation of what's happening in the outside environment. Is that clear, Kratos?
Can you please repeat?
Okay, I said, guys, the optic nerve has got sensory neurons. You guys know the functions of sensory neurons. Sensory neurons, they receive impulses from their receptor immediately. When the nerve impulses come from their receptor, they go to the sensory neurons. Then now, the sensory neurons will transmit those nerve impulses to the cerebrum, so that the cerebrum can interpret it as vision, and you can start seeing what's happening outside. I told you guys that you don't see with your eyes, you see with your brain. Basically, now the impulses will now go to your cerebrum, or they will go to your brain, and you'll start thinking. You start be able to see and interpret it. No, man, this object is a phone, this object is a pen, this object is this and that and that. And then that's how we are able to see at the end of the day.